What's up, Night Owl Stealer here, back with another video, and today I'm going to be walking you through how to run the 10 Towns quest Mountain Climb, which takes place in Targos. The premise of Mountain Climb is that a wilderness guide by the name of Garrett Velrin was hired by a group of adventurers to take them up the mountain of Kelvin's Cairn. The adventurers and Garrett were attacked by a Yeti as they made their way up the mountain. One of the sled dogs that Garrett raised when it was a pup managed to break free from the sled and run back to town to warn somebody, which is where the party comes in. The sled dog's name is Boy, and it uses the wolf stat block, which means he's going to be pretty handy to have in a fight if your party decides to bring him along as a guide. This quest starts with Boy tackling whichever PC you like the least and licking their face and whimpering. At this point, the dog will use every communication tactic that it knows in order to lead the party to Garrett's home. When the party arrives at Garrett's house, they're going to meet Garrett's husband, Keegan. Keegan is neutral good, male human, commoner stat block. If you want a memorable personality for Keegan, pick your favorite gay character from a TV show. Is that insensitive? I don't think so. I personally went with Jonathan from the Fab Five, but you could also go with Mitchell from Modern Family. And if you've got the acting chops, which I do not, you could go with Cameron from Modern Family. That one would probably be my favorite, but I don't know if I could pull that one off. Keegan will tell the party that Garrett left a few days ago on the way to Kelvin's Cairn, and they stopped by Caer Konig in order to pick up some climbing supplies. Keegan will offer some of his scrimshander as payment, and he will also allow Boy to go with the party if they so choose. If the party decides to go to Caer Konig first, they can pick up some climbing gear. They can ask questions about the party that hired Garrett. They can also ask questions about Garrett himself. And most importantly, if the party doesn't have anyone that is an explorer or that can lead them through the wilderness, they can hire somebody from Frozen Far Expeditions to lead them up the mountain. If your party decides to skip Caer Konig and just go straight to the mountain, they may encounter some dwarven tracks on the way in the Dwarven Valley. There are several hundred dwarves living in these subterranean halls connected to a mine in Kelvin's Cairn, and the party is actually welcome to stay with them for a few days. But if the party has completed the Foaming Mugs quest, then they can stay indefinitely, and they are welcomed by the dwarves here in Dwarven Valley. Once the party actually reaches Kelvin's Cairn, there's going to be several events that happen as they climb the mountain, and they are detailed here on the map. The first of which is the base camp, which is where the party will find 2 tents and the rest of the sled dogs that have not broke free from the harness yet. These 5 sled dogs also use the wolf stat block, and they are friendly, cold, hungry, and miserable. If any character releases them, they quickly run to the nearest town, which is Caer Konig. There are 2 small crates here, one of which is empty because the sled dogs broke into it and ate all of the provisions. The other was just out of their reach, and it contains enough rations to feed 4 people for 3 days. After the base camp, the party's going to encounter a couple of mountain goats, which are indifferent to the party unless they are attacked. Now, these mountain goats are actually a really good red flag or a really good indicator for how you should be running your party or what your party is after. If you've already run this particular group before or you know them really well, you can ignore this part. But if you're running new people or if this is your first time DMing and your party ends up attacking these goats for whatever reason, they may be looking for more combat. So this is something. These goats are indifferent. They're non-hostile, but they do put up a fight. And just keep. This is something. This is a really good spot to kind of gauge what your party is after. If they attack these goats and then they just want some combat, you could spice up the campaign a little bit, add a little bit more combat. That may be what they're after. It may not be 100% what they're after, but they may be bloodthirsty, so feed them. Next up is the avalanche, and let me tell you, I don't get it. I don't get it. The first time I ran this, it was rough, and I told the party that it was going to be rough because I didn't fully understand how to go. So I got a lot of feedback from the party that I ran it through, and then I ran it again, and for a third time, as a matter of fact. So I've run this avalanche a couple of times, and I was really trying to gauge the best way to go about it, because the details that the book give you are, I don't know. I don't know what it is about this avalanche. Let me know in the comments if you've run the avalanche and you enjoyed it, or if you just skipped over it. I'm going to go over how I eventually ended up running it that I think works, but I still don't necessarily like it. So I'm going to walk you through that right here. All right. So let's start with the rules that are given in wilderness survival. An avalanche is a mass of snow and debris falling rapidly down a mountainside. A typical avalanche is 300 feet wide, 100 feet long, 30 feet thick. Creatures in the path of an avalanche can avoid it or escape it if they're close to its edge, but outrunning one is almost impossible. When an avalanche occurs, all nearby creatures must roll initiative twice each round. On initiative counts 10 and 0, the avalanche travels 300 feet until it can travel no more. That part's important. This avalanche is going to travel 300 feet on initiative count 10, and then another 300 feet on initiative count 0. When an avalanche moves, any creature in its space moves along with it and falls prone. And the creature must make a DC 15 strength saving throw or take a D10 bludgeoning. On a failed save, half. On a successful one. When the avalanche stops, the snow settles and buries creatures in it. A creature buried in this way is blinded and restrained and has total cover. The creature gains 1 level of exhaustion for every 5 minutes it spends buried in the snow. This means that in 30 minutes, exhaustion, you can go to 6 and then you're dead. So you can spend 30 minutes in the snow before you just die outright. It can try to dig itself free as an action, breaking the surface and ending the blinded and restrained conditions on itself with a DC 15 athletics check. A creature that fails this check 3 times can't attempt to dig itself out again. A creature that is not restrained or incapacitated can spend 1 minute freeing another creature buried in the snow. Once free, that creature is no longer blinded or restrained by the avalanche. Now let's have a look at what's given in the Mountain Climb quest. You have your description here. You just read this out. And the party finds itself in the path of an avalanche, which is 200 feet wide, 100 feet long, 30 feet deep. To run this event, first determine the marching order of the party. I have this right here to represent our party and how far apart the characters are. Assume that the nearmost party member is directly below the avalanche, which means the next character must move at least 100 feet to get clear of the avalanche's path. Now we're going to all roll initiative. So just treat this like a regular combat to start with. And we know that the avalanche is going to be 100 feet that they need to travel. So here's what we know. We know that the avalanche is going to move a total of 1,000 feet before it hits the ground and the snow settles. 1,000 feet. The avalanche starts 500 feet above the party, which means it's going to move 500, hit the party, and then move another 500 before it hits the ground. So far, so good. We also know that the avalanche is 200 feet wide, and it's centered on the party member in the very rear. So at least one party member is going to need to move a total of 100 feet to get out of the path of the avalanche. We also know that the avalanche is going to go on initiative count 10 and initiative count 0. And the party will either go before the 10 or after the 10. But because the avalanche starts 500 feet above the party, the avalanche is first going to move 300 feet, which puts it 200 feet above the party at initiative count 10. And then at initiative count 0, it's going to consume the party when it moves another 300 feet. So just to recap, the avalanche is going to start at 500. It's going to start 500 feet above the party. It's going to move to 200 feet on initiative count 10. And then it's going to move to minus 1,000 feet at initiative count 0, at which point it will take the party and move them 100 feet. Now the party is inside of the avalanche. And this is all happening in one round. Depending on the level of the party and what races your party choose, there may be some party members who can get out of this. Wood elves have a speed increase. Rogues can use their bonus action to dash, as well as their standard action. They can cover a lot of ground. Tabaxi have feline agility. Eladrin can teleport. There's a lot of different wizards can use Misty Step. There's a lot of different ways that your party could get out of this avalanche, but chances are not everyone's going to. So at initiative count 0, whoever's not out of the path of the avalanche is going to get hit. On the next turn, on initiative count 10 and on initiative count 0, the avalanche is going to move to minus 400 feet. And then on initiative count 0, it's going to hit the ground at minus 500 feet. Now, when I say minus, I mean minus the distance that the party is from the avalanche. Because the avalanche started at plus 500 and it's moving 1,000 feet down the mountain, it's going to stop at minus 500. That minus being the position that the party started. The rules say that when an avalanche moves, that is initiative count 0 and initiative count 10, any creature in its space moves with it, falls prone, and takes damage with a save. Save for half. Which means on the first turn, whoever gets caught in the avalanche is going to take a D10 on initiative count 0. The next turn, on initiative count 10, they're going to take another D10. And then finally, on initiative count 0, the avalanche is going to land, and they're going to take yet another D10. So a total of 3 D10 before they hit the ground. And again, this is a save for half. There was a bit of a debate on whether or not the party could actually move in the avalanche. It seems kind of odd and contradictory, but the rules do say that they are knocked prone. So it kind of implies that on your turn, if you're inside of the avalanche, you can use half of your movement to stand up and then move in an attempt to get out of the avalanche. It's hard to really process how that works. That's entirely up to you as the DM, whether or not you'll allow them to just stand up and start walking out of the avalanche while it's falling. That's up to you. By the rules, I think that they can, but I don't know, and it seems kind of weird being able to stand up and like walk out of the avalanche. So up to you as the DM if you want to allow your party to stand up and get out of there. So at this point, the avalanche has stopped and your party is now buried underneath it. If some of the party members manage to get out of the path of the avalanche before it hit, they'll be about 500 feet above the party while they're still on the mountain. And it'll be entirely up to you how long it takes those party members to reach the party underneath the snow in order to descend the mountain and free the party. Anyone who's still in the snow is blinded and restrained and can use their action to break free. They get 3 attempts at this before they are just locked into the snow and can't escape. I like this encounter conceptually, but I feel like mechanically there's something off about it, and I can't quite put my finger on how to fix it. Leave a comment down below letting me know how you ran it, or if you have any suggestions on fix it, or if you think it's perfect just the way it is. Now let me go over a few things that you should keep in mind if you plan on running this encounter. 1, if a party member manages to escape that avalanche, you need to have a set amount of time it takes them to reach the rest of the party that was trapped in the avalanche. This is incredibly relevant as whoever is out of it can actually dig out the party. But the time constraints could add exhaustion to the party. So that's something that you need to keep in mind. The book isn't really clear. How long does it take the party to get down that mountain and start freeing them? Does it take 30 minutes? Are they going to freeze to death? How much exhaustion are they going to start racking up? That's important. Also, can the party use alternative methods to escape, like cantrips that produce flame, create bonfire, fire bolts, things like that, things that would overcome the difficulty, because it just says athletics to get out, but there's some other thing, like if they come up with a creative way to get out of it, keep that in mind. Overall, I have mixed feelings about this encounter, because while it is cool to have like the party hit by an avalanche and get out of it, it's just so messy. How like there's just, I guess there's just not enough rules to it, or I don't know. Maybe I just don't get it. Maybe I just don't get it. I just don't like this. Yeah, definitely let me know in the comments. What is it? What is it about this counter that I just don't, that's not clicking with me? Do you like this encounter? Oh, and one more thing, DM confession time. If you really want to tug at your party's heartstrings and really like get the emotions going, kill boy in that avalanche. I did that in one of my groups and actually felt kind of bad doing it. Like I felt like I actually killed a dog. It was terrible, but that could definitely get an emotional response out of your party. The next encounter will be with the fallen climber, Garrett, who is barely conscious when the party arrives. He'll wake up and he'll explain to the party about the adventurers that were with him and give them descriptions, just as a pair of crag cats will show up at the smell of Garrett's blood and they will attack the party. The personality that I gave to Garrett was the rugged adventurer type. You could go with Aragon or Bear Grylls, something along those lines. After that, the party needs to make the Perilous Climb, and this is where it starts getting brutal. They've already suffered the avalanche. They may even have exhaustion levels from that one. Then they had to fight the Crag Cats. They may have lost Boy, and now they have to make these athletic checks or suffer more levels of exhaustion. And keep in mind that levels of exhaustion will actually become easier to get because it will start affecting your skill checks like right away. So these athletics checks are going to be made with disadvantage due to previous exhaustion levels, which are going to cause more exhaustion along the way. So this is an incredibly lethal climb for your party. After the Perilous Climb, they'll make it to the Frozen Cave. Inside this cave, the party will find the Goliath and the Halfling from Garrett's adventuring party, leaving only the Tiefling left to find. This cave also contains a Mama Yeti and a Baby Yeti. The Papa Yeti is currently out gathering food for its family, and at your discretion, this Papa Yeti can come up and attack the party. I personally had this encounter go that the party goes inside the cave, finds the mother attacks, that's initiative, and the Baby Yeti runs away and hides. Once the Mother Yeti has been dealt with, this leaves the party with the dilemma, the moral dilemma of what to do with this Baby Yeti. Some of my parties actually had debated on whether or not to kill it, or to raise it, or to even go back to town and sell it. Whatever route the party decides to choose, have a plan for it. And keep in mind that a naturally evil creature like a Yeti can be raised to be good. This has been confirmed by several of the developers of Dungeons and Dragons. Specifically, Chris Perkins tweeted out that even a black dragon, an evil creature, can be raised good. There's no inherently evil creatures, at least not anymore. There was at one time back in 3.5, but nowadays an evil creature can be good. So whether or not you relay that to the party is entirely up to you. But I currently have a group that has this Baby Yeti in tow, and they're working on raising this Yeti. And at some point in the story, something for you to keep in mind, this Yeti will be an adult, and they will have an adult Yeti party member. Don't be afraid to give your party an NPC like that, especially if they've earned it. There's nothing wrong with just having that NPC in tow, a Yeti helping things out. Believe me, if you've played Out of the Abyss, you know that NPCs can really have an impact on story. As far as loot goes, I personally spiced it up a bit by making the great axe that the Goliath was carrying a +1 great axe. And if you don't have a party member that can use it, like a two-handed fighter or a barbarian, you could just as easily make it a regular battle axe, one-handed. And please spare me your comments about how the campaign is supposed to be that way. The campaign is not supposed to be any kind of way. It is up to you as the DM, and it's up to the players. If your players enjoy lots of loot, lots of XP, and lots of progression, you give it to them. Don't force them to play the way that you want it to be played just because you think that this is a horror survival, low resources type game. Not everybody wants to play in that game. If that's the game that your players are looking for, absolutely. But a lot of players want loot. They want the XP. They want the progression. Give it to them. Whatever your party is looking for, give it to them. Do not force your own play style and your own vision of how this game is supposed to be. People that complain about Tasha's racial diversity and all that stuff. My goodness. What kind of game is your players looking for? Give it to them. That's, in my opinion, what a DM's for. The last location on the path up the mountain is the ruined camp, and this is where the party will find the last adventurer in Garrett's party, the Tiefling. This Tiefling was a wizard, and they carried a spell book and a potion of invisibility. This is a pretty nice loot for this Tiefling. But if you want to spice it up a bit, add scrolls, change the potion, whatever you see fit. You can modify the spell book if your party actually has a wizard that's a specialized wizard. Maybe throw one of their specialized spells in there. Those are just suggestions, but currently, Tiefling, Potion of Invisibility, Spellbook. Solid loot for the end of this particular quest. And that's not all, because when the party brings Garrett back to Keegan in Targos, Keegan will reward them with 4 figurines, each worth 10 gold pieces. And that's it for the quest Mountain Climb. I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, you know how YouTube works. Hit those buttons, leave a comment down below. Let me know what your favorite of the 10 Towns quest is. And if you're a DM looking for players looking for a DM, make sure you join the Discord, link in the description. Come by, ask questions, let me know what you think. And as always, I'll see you at sundown.